Cinephiles. If you're new here, I'm Tiffany and I do movie reactions here on YouTube, except for today. Today is a little bit of a different video. But if you're not new here, welcome back, Cinephiles. So we have finished the Scream franchise as it currently stands. Scream 7 comes out this February. And so after we always finish a franchise, we look at the tier ranking of the deaths in that franchise. We did it for Final Destination, which was the first series we completed on this channel. We didn't do it for The Conjuring because there really wasn't any. I mean, we could have done a ranking of the demons that they fought, but that still wouldn't have been as interesting, I don't think, because, I mean, we really didn't see them past one movie unless it's Valak. But now we are going to be looking at the deaths from Scream to Scream 6 and ranking them from best to worst, if you want to call it that. It's on a tier ranking. I tend to find that these are a little bit easier to do and a little bit more engaging than if I were to rank them 1 to however many deaths there are. I haven't checked. I want to say it's 51. But overall, this just seems like a better way to do it. So let's go ahead and jump right back into it. Okay, Cinephiles, so what I have done here is I have made a tile for each character that appears in the franchise and has a death scene. And if there are multiple people that are killed in the scene, for example, the bodega scene in Scream 6, those are all grouped together as one, as the entire scene is one climactic event instead of each one of their deaths separately. But the only time that does not happen, I will go ahead and tell you, is in Scream 5, because we do have the hospital scene where there are other deaths, but there is one major character death, so you will see those separately on this list. Now, looking at the tier ranking here, we have What's Your Favorite Scary Movie? This is the most iconic line of the franchise. Each of these tier rankings are going to be an iconic line, mostly from the first movie, but ones that have kind of gone on into the rest of the series. With What's Your Favorite Scary Movie, it just seems like it would be the best. I mean, this is the line that we hear in everything. This is the line that Roger L. Jackson has pretty much coined. It's the one that they probably have him sign the entire time. It's the one I would have him sign the entire time. But this is just kind of the most iconic deaths. It's ones that strike you off guard, but also, you know, is really good. The effects are great. The scene itself is great. It really leaves a mark on you. That's the What's Your Favorite Scary Movie. Next, we have I'll Be Right Back. Now, this is a quote that is originally said by Stu in the first movie, and it has since become one of those, you do not say that when you leave the room, but he did. So for this ranking, that's going to be the ones that you definitely liked. They may not have been as loved, but you definitely liked them. You thought they were really good because that is the second most quoted line in the entire franchise. Then we have My Mom and Dad Are Gonna Be So Mad at Me. And for me, this is the one that has the death scenes that a lot of other people may like, but I necessarily don't like for one reason or another, which I will get into. This is one of those things where it's like, hey, you might not like this, but this is my opinion, and you are more than welcome to have your own. This is a free and open space, and we are all entitled to our own opinions. Our D tier is going to be, there are certain rules that one must abide by. We expect certain things out of the Scream franchise, especially if we grew up watching it, if we've seen every movie multiple times. There are certain death things that we expect, and if it does not live up to that, and it's just kind of a one-off death, it's going to go in that. Now, our last tier, deaths that are just not good, they're not great at all, they're horrific, they don't matter, that goes into Not in My Movie, which is said by Sydney at the end of Scream 1 when Randy explains that the killer is going to come back for one last scare. She says, Not in My Movie. And for me, that is just kind of, you know, that I would not have put that in the Scream movie. It was inconsequential to me. I didn't like it, and I don't care for it. So that is our rankings. Let's go ahead and get right into it, starting with these I thought were going to be randomized, and I can't find a place to randomize these. If you know how to do that on TierMaker, please let me know down in the comment section. So since they are not random, they are in order by the movie in which they came. So I'm actually just going to pick from here because I feel like if we just go in order, it's going to be a tad anticlimactic in my opinion. So we're going to start with Rebecca Walters from Scream 4. This is Sydney's publicist. She's kind of snarky, kind of annoying, and she really just does not get why Sydney is doing the things that she is doing. She does not understand that Sydney does come from a place of darkness and she does have that PTSD. She does need to assist these teens with this because she's been through it in a way. They were kind of like her children. Whereas all Rebecca sees is money and status and such like that. She sees the big lights and the book deals, and therefore she gets fired by Sydney, which leads to her going into the parking garage and getting slaughtered and then thrown off of a rooftop onto the news van. Her death is, first of all, just great because I'm so happy she's gone at that point. But the death in the parking garage itself, I don't think is as good as the aftermath of what happened. You have her running through the parking garage. She's wearing heels, which you cannot convince me a woman who's being chased by a psychotic killer won't kick her heels off and go. Um, but for nonetheless, she does keep the heels on. She does have the issue with the car, and then she tries to run back to the entrance, and it is not available. The handle actually comes off, and when she turns around, Ghostface stabs her. It is a single stab wound. It is not one that we see happen frequently. A lot of the times when Ghostface kills somebody, it is more than a single stab wound, but nonetheless, hers is very quick. And then we have the press conference with Dewey and the Woodsboro Police Department. Due to the fact that I'm not a huge fan of her actual death part of it, I am going to put her death in. My mom and dad are going to be so mad at me. I think that the aftermath of her death is a lot better, and I think that because of the fact the entire scene is considered as one, a lot of people like that death a little bit more than others. But for me, it just wasn't what it needed to be. It wasn't what I wanted it to be. If they had done a little bit more cat and mouse with Rebecca and then thrown her off the rooftop, it would have been a lot better in my opinion. Moving on, we are going to look at Maureen Prescott. That is Sydney's mother and the beginning of all of this, the catalyst for the entire franchise coming about. Maureen had a very rough past, which we learn about more in Scream 3. And that led to a lot of things that she had to deal with. One of those being the frivolity with men that she enjoyed with Cotton and Hank, and she was married to Neil, which I don't understand why anyone would hurt Neil. He is amazing, but nonetheless, Maureen's death kind of begins everything as she rejects Roman, who is Ghostface from Scream 3, if you haven't seen my reaction to that already or haven't seen that film. And he kind of guides Billy and Stu in what would be the events of Scream 1. Her death is not seen on screen, so it's kind of left up to the imagination. However, it is described as being assaulted and then stabbed repeatedly, which sounds absolutely horrific. And then when you also take into account that these are two teenage boys doing this, the death itself sounds horrific. But one of the reasons I'm so glad that it's off screen. I do not need to see that on screen. But I'm actually going to put Maureen's death in not in my movie. I completely understand the stabbing part of it in movie context. I do not understand the assault by Stu and Billy. And I could have missed, I've watched this movie so many times, but I could have missed it where they assume she was assaulted because she had had relations with Cotton prior to her demise. But if it is still assumed that she was actually assaulted, then you're also telling us that these two teenage boys were the culprits in that matter, as well as the murder. And that's just not something that I can really think about in my Scream movies. Something like I Spit on Your Grave, I definitely could see that, but not necessarily Scream. So I'm gonna put Maureen's and not in my movie. Next, we are going to look at Tyson Fox. He is one of my favorite characters in Scream 3. He is the Randy substitute, even though he says that he's not. And he is one of the cast of Stab 3, which is being directed by Roman Bridger. Tyson is the comedic relief of the cast as well as the movie itself. It is almost funny at times. We have him being attacked in the bedroom and then running down the hall where he's almost Scooby-Dooed in a way because Ghostface grabs the rug and pulls it out from under him, causing him to flip. And I'm sorry, he hits his head pretty hard. I'm surprised he didn't break his neck from that. But him running down the stairs and calling Ghostface a motherfucker is just the absolute, comedic gold for me in this film. It's something that I used to rewind quite a bit and rewatch that scene just because it seemed so real. It seemed like something somebody would say as they were running away from a homicidal maniac. But with that being said, the only part of Tyson's death that I'm not the biggest fan of is the fact that he's just thrown out of a window at the end. But I do love the lead up to it, and for that, I am going to put his death in I'll Be Right Back. I think that ending part where he was thrown over the balcony could have been a tad better, a stab or something. We are in a he's being cast in a stab movie, he's playing in a Scream movie, and he doesn't have any stab wounds except for the one he gets prior to running. There's no death stab, if you will. So we are going to go with I'll Be Right Back. Next, I'm going to look at Deputy Clay from Scream 2022. And yes, I know you're like, who? He's literally a deputy you see for all of 2 seconds. He is the one that is guarding Tara after Judy Hicks's death, and he gets his throat slit in the lobby in the nurse's station, if you will. I am going to put him in. There are certain rules that one must abide by. If you are going to be a character in a Scream film, a stab movie, however you want to token it, you need to honestly be able to be remembered. And at first, when I was rewatching this, I thought, oh, he's just a background body. But he literally is still gurgling when Tara goes to see if he still has his gun. So that's why I'm going to put him in. There are certain rules that one must abide by. His death is interesting. Like, why are there absolutely no nurses on that floor? And how was he so easy to, attack? But it was very much like, meh, okay, he's dead. Next, let's look at Principal Hembry. Principal Hembry is played by the Fonz himself, which I did not grow up watching, but I do like Henry Winkler. He played the creepiest principal that I've pretty much seen in my life. I do not like Principal Hembry. I think that he's a little too touchy-feely with his students. I think that the way that he acts with Sydney in the interrogation after Casey and Steve's death is a little questionable, and the deputy Dewey and the sheriff should have called him on that, but they did not. I don't see a point to his death. I really don't. I don't know why he was included, unless it was just to rack up the body count. Stu and Billy don't have anything going on with him. They were not part of the students who were being interrogated by him for wearing the masks in the school. They were not part of the group of students who were being punished for that. They were very much flying under the radar. So why kill Principal Hembry? It makes absolutely no sense to me. And so for that, I am going to put him in not, well, actually, I think I'm going to put him in. There are certain rules that one must abide by. I almost put him in not in my movie just because it makes no sense. However, his death itself is fairly interesting with Ghostface hiding behind the door, but it just doesn't make as much sense as it should because there's no animosity there between the perpetrators and Principal Hembry. So that is why I'm going to put that there. Next, we are going to look at Liv McKenzie. Liv is from Scream 5. She is Chad's girlfriend and seems to have had a fling with Vince Schneider, who is played by Kyle Gallner, the horror king, and is Stu Macher's nephew. But Liv is at most 17, maybe 18, and Vince is in his 20s. Does nobody find this concerning? Nobody? Okay, just me? Alright. So that's a little questionable, but we're not here to talk about her character. We're here to talk about her death. Her death is shocking. It is the most shocking of Scream 5. It is not my favorite death of Scream 5. Go check out my Scream 5 video if you haven't already. It's a good one, in my opinion. But her death is shocking because we just had Mindy get attacked. We've just seen Chad getting attacked. Liv runs back in. She's got blood on her hands. And that's when Amber appears to show everybody that she is one of the killers when she shoots Liv in the head. When I first saw the movie, I did not think that Amber was going to be one of the killers. Honestly, if anything, I thought it was gonna wind up being Richie and Mindy, or even Richie and Tara. And yes, I understand, hey, she was, pretty banged up in that, and she was, stabbed up and everything. She could have had him do that to keep the heat off of her, kind of like Jill was trying to do in Scream 4. But her death is so creative, and then having Mikey Madsen turn to the camera and, say, hey, this is Act 3 or welcome to Act 3. It was very good. The scene in general was very great. So this is going to be my first installment into what's your favorite scary movie. Next, we are going to be looking at Maureen Roberts. I'm sorry, not Maureen Roberts, Kate Roberts, Maureen's sister, who looks older than Maureen, but I'm not too sure about that. We don't really hear much about Sydney's family except for Scream 4, and it's literally only Kate and Jill. Kate almost seemed like she had some stuff going on mentally. She was kind of checked out most of the movie, and when she was spoken to, it was very airy and very just, like, well, it is what it is. So her death was very unimpactful to pretty much anything. And it didn't matter that she had died. I mean, even when she died, Sydney takes about 2 seconds to mourn her and then runs off to find Jill. So I'm actually going to put her right on beside her sister and not in my movie. If you are going to have a mother who has been shown multiple times, who is a family member of your main survivor, pass away, then it needs to be a little bit more impactful. Show Sydney being upset. Obviously, we're not going to see Jill being upset because she winds up being one of the perpetrators. However, have Sydney be upset. Have that be the last extension of her mother that she had. We're not sure what happened to Neil. At this point, I'm assuming that Neil had already been deceased at this point. But there was a lot of things that could have happened with that death that did not. Next, we are going to be looking at Greg Bruckner. Greg is one of the two Ghostface killers at the very beginning of Scream 6. They are the ones that were trying to mimic Richie and finish killing Sam and Tara like he had anticipated in Scream 5 had he not met his own demise. Greg is not shown on screen. He is I take that back. Greg is not shown alive on screen. He is already deceased by the time his roommate and possible boyfriend Jason gets home, and he's already beheaded in the fridge. Now, here is something that is a little iffy on this. When I first saw the film in theaters, I thought that he was completely dismembered. I thought that it was, different pieces of him on different shelves in the fridge. However, upon rewatch, it's literally just his body put in the fridge and then his head's off. So it's not as exciting or not as inventive as I had first thought it was. So that does bring it down a little bit for me, which is going to lead it into. Ooh, it's tough between Not in My Movie and There Are Certain Rules. I'm going to put it there, and there are certain rules that one must abide by. If he is going to be a Ghostface killer, he needs to actually have a death scene that matters. And I think it would have been more impactful had he been fully dismembered. I like Jason opening up the fridge and finding him. I think that that is shocking in of itself, but there could have been a lot more done with him, even with him being off screen. Next, we are going to look at Officer Andrews. He is one of the two, and we'll look at both of them together, but he is one of the two bodyguards Sidney is assigned by Sheriff Hartley, or Chief Hartley, in Scream 2 after the deaths start piling up. They are in a car going to a safe location with Hallie and Sidney, and Ghostface attacks. Now, Officer Andrews is sitting in the passenger seat and he makes a don't ask, don't tell joke, if you will. But this is also after Sidney assumes that he is homosexual, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, when I read, it began with a scream by Patrick Maroney, which I highly recommend if you're a fan of the series. Also said that the actor himself is gay. So having that joke in there was a little slightly distasteful, but I was like 2 years old when this movie came out. So who knows if that was something that was known or if it wasn't found out until after they had already filmed the scene and everything. But his death is very quick. It's just a throat slit, and then he's dead and thrown out of the car. It is something that is just not becoming of the Scream franchise, even with him being a cop, even with him being, such a small role. He does deserve respect, like all the other characters, so I'm going to put Officer Andrews' death in Not in My Movie. We've seen a lot of cop deaths in this film, and in the series, in Scream 2 and Scream 4, as well as Scream 5, and Scream 6. And his is just the least impactful. However, his partner, Officer Richards, has a crazy death scene after Officer Andrews is thrown out of the car and Ghostface takes the helm of driving. Officer Richards is on top of the car. He does have his service weapon in his hand. However, he does not get a chance to fire it at Ghostface. Ghostface winds up driving through a lot of construction materials, which do hit and hurt Officer Richards, but it isn't until they drive upon some pipe that goes through Officer Richards' head that he ultimately does die, because it does pin him into the windshield. Now, if you've ever seen 911, the TV show, you know that people can apparently survive with rebar through their head. I'm looking at you, Chimney. But Officer Richards does not. And the lingering pan onto his hand that is still holding his service weapon and is twitching is horrific. Not to mention when Hallie and Sidney have to crawl through and see his body. So unlike his partner, his death is going to go up higher, and I'm actually going to put his death in I'll Be Right Back. I think that it's really a really good death scene. However, I can't justify putting it in What's Your Favorite Scary Movie, just because he's not as big of a character as others. We are now going to be looking at John Milton. John Milton is the sleazeball from Scream 3. He is played by veteran horror actor Lance Hendrickson, who is known for Pumpkinhead, which I have not seen but have since bought. I believe Lance Hendrickson is also in an Aliens movie, and he has done some other titles, obviously. He also did The Quarry, which I have not finished playing through, but am very excited to do. But in this film, John Milton is a complete and utter dirtbag. And obviously, he is poised to be a replica of Harvey Weinstein at the time. However, it's still just horrific. And when you start to learn about the things that he did at his parties, the things that he allowed to happen at his parties, especially to Maureen, you start to wonder, what kind of person that could be. I mean, and yes, I know that we just had the documentary come out about Diddy. I have not watched it yet. And I am aware that things like this happen in Hollywood all the time, but it's sad that it even has to happen. So, with Milton's death, he is in his secret screening room, and Roman brings him out, parades him in front of Sydney for a bit, talks nonsense, and then slits his throat. Now, this death had me, cheering. Thank you, he's gone, bye, whatever. But something else is, I wonder if he was Roman's father. If he particularly was Roman's father. And so I am going to have to put John's death in. My mom and dad are going to be so mad at me. I feel like a lot of people don't care about his death because he is such a minor character who does not have a ton of screen time. However, within the lore, he is a huge piece of the storyline, and I just get so much satisfaction when Roman ends his life. Which sounds really bad, but Maureen had to deal with that for the rest of her life, even if it was very short, and I will leave that at that. Next, we are going to be looking at technically 5. Wait, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, 5 different tiles, but they are all clustered together in a way. It is the multiple openings from Scream 4 with Trudy and Sherry, Rachel, Marnie, and ultimately Jenny. This does encapsulates the girls that are part of Scream 4 and are dealing with the stuff with Ghostface in Woodsboro, but are not part of the Stab franchise already. Starting with Sherry. Sherry is played by Lucy Hale, who would then go on to be in Pretty Little Liars, or was starting to do Pretty Little Liars at this point, and had not yet become a huge name. Her death is that she and her friend have a Facebook stalker who might be Channing Tatum, and they open up the front door and she gets her throat slit. She goes down very nonchalantly. It is what it is. It's not a great opening kill, and this franchise is so known for its opening kills that when this happened, and I saw this movie in theaters, but when this happened, I was not pleased. So I am going to actually put her death in Not in My Movie. Likewise, with her, we have Trudy's death, who has the Facebook stalker and gets stabbed in the chest. Trudy's character comes off like an airhead to me. She has a lot of different things that Sherry kind of has to slowly remind her about. Like, that's not a stalker, that's Channing Tatum, like, obviously. But a lot of people don't necessarily know that. However, Trudy just kind of is like, no, it's fine, it's fine. And then continues to talk to the person who says they're going to kill her, which is ridiculous in and of itself. When she does get stabbed, she winds up like jolting a little bit, and it does make me giggle. But nonetheless, it's just not a great scene, so she is going to be joining her best friend Sherry in Not in My Movie. I am really not a fan of that opening from Scream 4. Rachel, however, is not going to go in Not in My Movie. Rachel is actually going to go into there are certain rules that one must abide by. And yes, I know that I gave the ranking before I went into my explanation of this. Anna Paquin and Kirsten Bell were both huge names at the time. Miss Bell had just come off of Veronica Mars. She was in the middle of doing Gossip Girl, and Anna Paquin was known for X-Men and had just started True Blood, or was about to start True Blood. So both of them were pretty more well-known actors. And I did know Shanae Grimes, who played Trudy from Degrassi, but that's regardless of the point. She also did 90210. Rachel is basically shitting on the franchise, talking about how, there are people who don't understand, and how could she think she had a Facebook stalker. A lot of what Rachel says makes sense as a fan of horror films and somebody watching them. You never know why somebody acts that way. However, when Kirsten Bell's character stabs her in the stomach, it is absolutely shocking. You don't think that it's going to happen that way. You think somebody's going to pop up from behind the couch or in the closet, but it's Kirsten Bell. So, just for the sheer fact that it is that shocking, I have moved it up to there are certain rules that one must abide by. Now, we're going to be looking at Marnie Cooper. Marnie's death is more so done off screen. We do later in Scream 4 see a video that Charlie has taken of him stabbing her repeatedly, but her death in the actual cut of the film is very off screen, very small. You know, she makes a noise and then she's gone. So for that, it's just kind of not in my movie. Even with that small little tidbit later when Charlie shows the audience his phone, it's just not enough to redeem the fact that you took the opening kill of a stab movie or a Scream movie and gave us this. You've had Jada Pinkett Smith screaming at the screen. You've had Drew Barrymore getting dragged across the lawn. You had Liz Schreiber and Kelly Rutherford playing Kiki Sex Games, and you give me this. No, thank you. Likewise with that, we have Jenny Randall, who in Scream 4 is known for having relations with Trevor Shelton, who is the boyfriend or ex-boyfriend of the main character, Jill. Ginny's lines are horrendous. I am a straight A student with 140 IQ. Nobody cares. Nobody cares. He doesn't care. He just wants to kill you. He just wants to annoy you before he kills you. So you're basically giving yourself away, and it's just annoying. Even when she's running, her house is very confusing, which has nothing to do with her death, but her house is very confusing. And when she finally does go down the stairs, she is stabbed in the back, and it's not necessarily seen if her spine was severed, and that's why she couldn't walk. But she is like crawling for dear life, but then instead of rolling under the garage door, she tries to pull herself through it, and that results in her hips being crushed and then ultimately her death. So there was a lot of decisions that were made by her that I don't think were going to be made by a lot of people who have seen this movie or who would like do that fantasy of, oh, well, if I was in a Scream movie. But her death just kind of falls flat in that regard, and for that I'm going to put it in. I'm actually going to put it in My Mom and Dad Are Going to Be So Mad at Me, because while it is better of the openings deaths in Scream 4, a lot of people think her death is a lot better than I believe it is. So I'm going to put it in My Mom and Dad Are Going to Be So Mad at Me, strictly for the fact of I don't think that it's that good. Okay, so next we are going to be looking at Hallie. Hallie was Sydney's, I hesitate to say best friend, but the closest friend in Scream 2 other than Randy. She was Sydney's roommate. She was very positive and very outgoing, trying to push Sydney to kind of live her life again after everything that happened. Her death occurred after the car crash that claimed Officer Andrews and Officer Richards' lives, and Sydney and her crawled through the window, ran towards safety, and then Sydney decided to go back. Why they didn't just rip the mask off while they were standing right there, I have no idea. But this leads to Ghostface jumping out from behind Hallie and stabbing her in the chest. Now, when Sydney says that he's not there anymore, you kind of, as a fan of horror in general, kind of know that that means that he is somewhere that he is not supposed to be, or somewhere that he was not supposed to be. And so that doesn't make her death as shocking as a lot are. And then Sydney doesn't, run towards her or anything, obviously, to fight Ghostface. She just runs away, so it's kind of anticlimactic. It almost is reminiscent of Tatum's death in a way, when Sydney finds the body or experiences it. However, her death is pretty much stab, scream, quintessentialness. It's, one stab, a couple stabs, and it's done. And then she dies. Her death could have been avoided because she did not have to go with Sydney. So I feel like her death was more just to amp up the body count. She was a major character, therefore she became cannon fodder with as well as a lot of characters in this series. But her death itself, I wasn't the biggest fan of. I feel like with her being such a major character, with her being one of the best friends, her death should have been more. You know, Tatum was her best friend and got this huge death scene. Even Rebecca, the publicist, had a better death scene. So I'm actually going to put Hallie's death, and my mom and dad are going to be so mad at me. I just expected more out of a death that was supposed to be Sydney's closest friend at the time. More so, we are going to go and look at Tatum's death now. Tatum was Sydney's best friend in Scream. It's not necessarily stated, but I would like to allude to the fact that they might have grown up together due to some instances that we see in the film. I don't think that this is a friendship that just started in high school. They are much too ingrained in each other for that to have happened. Tatum is Sydney's shoulder to cry on. She is very much her voice of reason, as well as the namesake for Sydney's daughter, as we found in Scream 7, which I was very excited about due to the fact that when they announced that Sydney was going to have children, I stated in Scream 5 when I saw it that one of those children had to be named Tatum. Her death scene is very long. It's very drawn out. So there's some instances where you're like, why is she even in here? Why not this? Why not that? But it's a very good death scene. The bottles breaking against Ghostface, having to run towards the cat door. You know, I would have ducked and rolled as soon as the cat door started, the garage door started coming back down. I don't care who is putting it back down, but she may have thought it was Stu. But then she thought it was Randy, and that was a whole thing as well. Her playing with Ghostface, her actually being the first person to call Ghostface Ghostface, everything about that scene is just very chef's kiss. I absolutely adore it. And fun fact, Rose McGowan could fit through that cat door or dog door, whatever you want to call it. They actually had to put an insert in it to make it where she could not do that. And then the visual of her face crumpling and then Sydney finding her body, it was all just like a perfect storm. So her is going to go up into what's your favorite scary movie. I very much enjoy that death. Next, we are going to look at Trevor Shelton. He is the ex-boyfriend of Scream 4's mastermind Ghostface, Jill Roberts, who is also Sydney's cousin. Trevor is what kind of seems to be the school hot guy. You know, he's almost looks athletic. He's like a Tyler. We all know a Tyler in our lives that are like that, or a Zach. But he cheats on Jill, which kind of leads to some of the killings in Scream 4, and then he spends the majority of the movie trying to get Jill back. I like Trevor's character. I think that Nico Tortorella, I think they do a great job of playing Trevor, but his death scene is brutal. It is brutal. I am not a guy. But seeing somebody get their manhood shot off and then getting shot in the head while also finding out all in one breath that their girlfriend is a psycho is very hard to watch. I thought that was crazy. And you've never seen something like that happen. And you know that Jill shot him just because of him cheating on her. But I don't know. It was pretty shocking because I just assumed he was going to get shot in the head and we were going to move on with it. But when she points it downwards and shoots, I audibly was like, because I saw that movie in theaters as well. So I'm actually going to put Trevor's death in I'll Be Right Back. It's a very good death. It's very shocking to me. So I was surprised by it. And along that same lines, we're going to be looking at Amber Freeman's death from Scream 5. She is one of the Ghostface, some hailed as the better of the two Ghostface in Scream 5. It is shown that she does a lot of the massacring herself. However, I'm not sure I necessarily believe that. You cannot tell me that little old Amber killed Dewey. Like, that Ghostface looks taller, but we know it's not Richie, so who knows what that could be. But Amber's death happens at the Mocker house. She is first caramelized with hand sanitizer, which I thought was just inventive. I mean, this came right after the whole pandemic that we had and how everybody was crazy about hand sanitizer, so I thought it was a little bit of an ode to that. And then she gets lit on fire by her gas stove. I was never excited to not have a gas stove until I saw this movie. But she gets, Kentucky Fried Ambered. And then we think she's gone until she gets up and runs back out and gets shot by Tara. I don't necessarily think the latter half of that needed to happen. It seems like we always have a ghost face jumping back up. In Scream 1, we had Billy try to jump back up. We also had Stu jump up from the kitchen and run after Sydney. In Scream 2, we thought Mickey was dead and he jumped back up. Scream 3, we thought we killed Roman when we stabbed him. He jumped back up. Scream 4, we thought Jill was dead after getting electroshocked and she jumped back up. So it's kind of like an ongoing thing. I think that had they just kept it at the hand sanitizer with the, ignition, that it would have been a lot better. However, that latter half where she does jump back up, run out, kind of brings it down just a little bit for me. Just because it seems like it's cut and paste, and it's nicer to have some things that aren't the same. So I'm gonna actually put Amber's death in I'll Be Right Back. Had they not had that latter half of it where she does come running back out with the knife, it would have been in What's Your Favorite Scary Movie? Looking now at a more inconsequential death, we are going to be looking at Paul 2.0. He is Quinn's lover in Scream 6. A lot of what we see about Quinn is that she sleeps around a lot, and that's stated by her roommates. And such. We only hear his voice until we see his dead body, and it just doesn't make any sense to me why he's there. We don't even see him. It's just there to add to the body count. So he's just going to go straight into not in my movie. Now we are going to look at Stephen Orth. Stephen is Casey's boyfriend from Scream 1. He isn't shown as much. He is tied to the chair out back, and Casey has to go through a round of horror questioning in order to save his life. His death itself, where he's gutted, it doesn't make as much sense. It's very quick. We hear about 2 stabs, and then all of a sudden he's got this gaping hole where it would literally be more of like a stab in a pull, because you have to rip that area open. If you just do it twice, you're just going to bleed out. So I don't think that it was a long enough time for the disembowelment to happen. However, the look of it is really cool. The look's really cool. But it's just not something, I don't believe it as much. It's hard to take that suspension of disbelief there for this one. So I am going to actually put his kill in. My mom and dad are going to be so mad at me. We are then going to look at Dr. Christopher Stone. Dr. Stone is Sam's psychiatrist in Scream 6. And he goes from telling Sam to open up to him and tell him everything, and then as soon as she does, he freaks out and reports her for making threats, even though she didn't make a threat. Obviously, I could definitely see where he was going to get scared about this and everything. However, if you know that your patient has done this and you know that they've had to use self-defense to protect themselves, why are you that surprised when she lists out how she protected herself? You are more than welcome to, be fearful for your own life. However, understand the context of the situation. I don't think that it helps Sam's case that she tells him who her father is. However, that also leads me to wonder what they have actually talked about in the 6 months. I know that he mentions that she talks a lot about Tara, but to what extent? So, his death scene, he is at his home watching Invasion of the Body Snatchers, and Ghostface starts knocking on his door. He comes to the door, and it's like a frosted glass thing, and it's a really cool imagery of Ghostface, tilting his head up and looking and then stabbing through the window and then stabs him through the eye. But in this case, it's hard for me to believe that that one stab would fully kill him. I could understand if he was still, babbling and groaning and such when he hit the floor, but when he hits the floor, he is fully dead, and that stab I don't think. You can correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. I would love to hear your opinion. However, I don't think that one stab would have fully killed him. So for that, I am going to put him in. There are certain rules that one must abide by. Next, we are going to be looking at Anthony Perkins from Scream 4. He's played by Anthony Anderson and is one of the two buddy cops in this film. They remind me a lot of like Martin and Riggs from Lethal Weapon. But Perkins is sitting in his squad car and plays a prank on Haas, and then after Haas dies, which we'll do Haas after this and we'll get to his death, Perkins gets stabbed in the forehead, and he gets out of the car, walks a few steps, curses Bruce Willis, and then falls and dies. When I first saw this, I didn't think that it was something that could actually happen, but come to find out, they were inspired on his death by a death that they had seen in the news. So apparently it can happen, it's just not as well known. It doesn't happen all the time. So his death itself, I think that Anthony Anderson does a really good job portraying it. I feel like they gave him a slightly longer death scene just because of how funny Anthony Anderson is and because of how great of an actor he is, actually. But I feel like his death itself didn't need that much. I'm going to actually put this one in. I'll be right back. Now we are going to be looking at Laura Crane. Laura is the opening kill in Scream 6, and she is played by horror actress and icon Samara Weaving, who we know from Ready or Not. Her death makes a lot of sense. She is on this first date, she's very nervous for it, and she's trying to help her would-be date get to the restaurant. She wanders into an alleyway where she assumes somebody's being hurt, so she has good intentions, and then she is killed. I think Samara Weaving plays this very well. She plays the emotion of being scared, and then to being, worried, and then to being, freaking terrified all in one go, and it's very good. It's very well done. I don't think her death itself is great. I think her performance is great. But we are looking at deaths, and she is cut a lot. Her death is very reminiscent of Helen from I Know It's July Summer, where it's kind of filmed from like behind something. So like hers is behind the dumpster, and I feel like it was a little unceremonial to Samara Weaving. As well as just not the best death. I'm not a fan of it. And then you have that reveal where the Ghostface takes off his mask. So her kill is not even the real kill of the opening. Almost kind of taking a page out of Scream 4's book. But it just was not my favorite. I think her acting is phenomenal. Her acting is my favorite. Her death scene, not so much. So I'm going to put her in There Are Certain Rules One Must Abide By. Kind of the same thing with Drew Barrymore. When you have that big of a name, or you have someone that's that well known and that well loved in the horror community playing your first victim, make her death mean something. Make her death good. Everybody, even over 30 years later, we are still, or almost 30 years later, we are still talking about Casey Becker's death, and I don't feel like that's going to happen with Samara Weaving's death in this movie. Next, we are going to be looking at Cece Cooper. Cece Cooper is played by Sarah Michelle Gellar, who played Helen, as well as Buffy the Vampire Slayer. She starred in Scream 2, and she was a classmate of Randy's. She is also a sorority girl and dies at her sorority house. Casey's death was meant to show a pattern of events in Woodsboro because her real name is Casey. However, after her death, they kind of taper off that, and so they lose that storyline, which makes her death a little less impactful in my eyes. However, her death scene in general is phenomenal. She has that kind of a chase scene where she's getting stalked by Ghostface through the phone, and then Ghostface comes in behind her, runs up the stairs, stabs her, and then throws her over the balcony. I can feel it in my back when she gets stabbed because of her screams and everything. It is guttural, and it hurts. It hurts me. So in that case, like, her death, I think, is really, really well done. I'm gonna put her right up into what's your favorite scary movie. It is. I believe I did give it the award for my favorite death scene in Scream 2. It's really good. Now we are going to be looking at Vince Snyder. Vince is Stu's nephew, even though we didn't know that he had a sister at all. We didn't know he had any siblings. Vince is at the bar and has just, tussled with some teenagers because that's what we do on our Friday night. And he is urinating on the wall of the bar, and his car begins to play Red Right Hand. That song is quintessential for this franchise. It is something that as soon as you hear it come on, you know that something is about to happen, and that's exactly what happens here, because as soon as he turns that off, Ghostface is behind him and stabs him in the neck. Now this is one of the only times where it's a single stab wound, and I understand it because they get him directly in that artery, and he bleeds out pretty profusely. But seeing just the red right hand, then the death, and then Ghostface do the signature slash where they wipe the blood off onto their glove, it's great. I really enjoy that one. And I'm gonna put that one right up into I'll Be Right Back. Next, we are going to be looking at the Bodega Deaths. The Bodega Deaths are a series of deaths that happen in a bodega. I believe it's called Abe Snake's. In Scream 6, this is after Sam and Tara are attacked on the street and they run into a bodega to get cover, and Ghostface comes in and winds up massacring two men who attempt to help Sam and Tara, and then the bodega clerk who, actually winds up giving him a gun. So these deaths are prominent in my liking of this film because we have never seen Ghostface just walk into a public area and just take on anybody he needs to. There were so many people in that bodega, and you're telling me that people cannot just jump on him and take him down, rip off that mask, anything? But no, he winds up getting 3 of them, and then everybody else just scurries. And it's crazy because these things happen these days. I also like the fact that the bodega owner tries to reason with them, but the others, they do not. They just immediately, run into action to try and help these girls. So for that, I'm going to put all 3 of these victims into what's your favorite scary movie. It is just shocking to see Ghostface be that brazen and that open and, going and getting that done. Next, we're going to look at Phil Stevens. Phil is one of the 2 opening kills in Scream 2. He is the boyfriend of Maureen Evans, and he gets killed in the bathroom. You wouldn't know this unless you've seen this movie several times and you know Timothy Olyphant's voice, but when he is whispering in that bathroom and Phil leans his head up against the wall, that is Timothy Olyphant's voice. He is, messing around, being comedic and everything, but that kind of gives away who is going to be the killer if you really know that character's voice and that actor's voice. Well, he gets stabbed through the wall into the ear, which is obviously going to kill him. But my question has always been how Ghostface had enough force to go through that wall. If you've ever been in a movie theater, they are not just, like little spongy walls. It's hard to believe that actually happened, in my opinion. So I'm actually going to put his death in. There are certain rules that one must abide by. I do not see how that knife could go through that wall. And it is a 1 stab. It makes more sense why it's a 1 stab. And then his death leads to one of the better deaths in the film. But it's very much kind of just like, okay, well, he's dead. Moving on. We're then going to look at Sarah Darling. She is an actress on Scream 3 set. And her death occurs pretty early in the movie. She goes to Roman's office to talk about her part in the movie and is then stalked and attacked by Ghostface. Sarah makes a lot of stupid decisions in this scene. Sarah runs into the prop area where she knows there's not going to be any real weapons, proceeds to try and use these as real weapons, and she hides in Ghostface robes. Your co-star was just murdered by a ghost face, and you are being stalked by a ghost face, and you are going to hide in a rack that has ghost face robes? No. No. Nobody is that stupid. And instead of calling 911, she calls Sunrise Pictures. I know that some people may make stupid decisions when they are being targeted or hunted down, but these are just too many. Too many. I am not a fan of her death, and then when she does die, she gets, one or two stabs in the back, and then she's left. I just think that the lead up to it, like you're screaming at the screen to get this girl to stop. I felt like watching this death that I was watching a scary movie death. It was too much. So this is actually going to go straight into not in my movie. I love Jenny McCarthy. I think that she is a great actress. I just was not a fan of her death at all. We're now going to look at Quinn Bailey. Quinn Bailey is one of the 3 killers in Scream 6, the only time we've had more than 2 killers. And her death is pretty... And we're talking about the actual death, not when she faked her death. Now, if she faked her death, it would be a lot higher up on this list, if that was her actual death scene. But since it was not her actual death scene, I cannot count that. But we're going to be looking at her actual death scene. She and her brother and her father are attacking Sam and Tara in the theater, the shrine, which, by the way, is probably my favorite set piece in this entire franchise. But she gets smacked with a brick and loses God knows, half her teeth, because she's still spitting them out later. And she goes after Sam and sees her brother get stabbed, and then immediately starts running at him just to get shot in the head. It's very quick, very... I don't care for it. I think that the better part of it is her getting smacked with the brick, just because of how many teeth she does lose, and then seeing her afterwards with like half of her teeth gone. But just being shot in the head, it's ridiculous. It's kind of stupid. I'm gonna put it in not in my movie. I think that Quinn is a good character. I think that her death should have been more than just getting shot. Now we are going to look at Olivia Morris. Olivia is one of Kirby and Jill's best friends in Scream 4. She is slaughtered. She is absolutely slaughtered. Before I even get into this, her death is obviously going to go straight up into what's your favorite scary movie. It won my favorite death for Scream 4. It is insane. Insane. It's not just I'm hiding in your closet, I'm going to stab you a couple times. She gets disemboweled. There is blood everywhere. In a deleted scene, you find out that she actually had a doggy door placed around her neck, in alluding to Tatum's death. She is just butchered. And for what? For what reason? Because everybody else's death in Scream 4 is very much less than it is. So what did Jill and Charlie have against Olivia? What was going on there? Did she know something that she was not supposed to know? Because there is no way that you can tell me that they had a good reason for brutalizing her as badly as they did. Watching it is horrible. When they put her out the window, oh God, that is, It is probably one of my favorite deaths of the entire franchise itself, which is weird because Scream 4 is my least favorite of the series. But her death is just absolutely, absolutely grotesque. Crazy. And speaking of not so grotesque deaths, we're going to be looking at Angelina Tyler. She is a actress who is playing Sydney in Stab 3. She was supposed to be in the original script, one of the killers, along with Roman, as a former classmate of Sydney. I read the original script. It was actually pretty cool. But they actually scrapped that after it got leaked online. And she became just another statistic in the film. She gets stabbed in the stairwell and dragged off to wherever he's hiding his bodies. This is the first time you've really seen Ghostface take a body away. I don't know the point of it. Like, what is he cleaning up after himself? All the other bodies are still there. I don't see him picking up Tyson's body off of the deck, but he does take her body away. We don't know why. I feel like a lot of it is to fake her death so that she would be set up as one of the killers, but she wasn't. So that kind of goes into why she was taken away. She also reveals that she slept with John Milton, which is gross. But, to each their own. And that's why she got the part of Sydney. But her death itself is not It's nothing to write home about. She runs down the stairwell, gets stabbed, gets dragged away, and then like the girls are just like, "Oh my god, hey, Angelina's dead." It is what it is. I'm gonna put her straight into not in my movie. Half the time I forget she actually dies. On the other side of that, not being able to forget that somebody dies, we're going to look at Randy Meeks, one of the best characters in the Scream franchise. He is in Scream 1 and Scream 2. Scream 1 as the geeky best friend to all of the characters. And then in Scream 2, he is the wise, movie loving, franchise rule giving man that we know that he is. He is also one of my biggest childhood crushes, Jamie Kennedy. But his death is horrific. Yes, he is bad mouthing Billy and Stu, and we know that this winds up being one of the actual only kills that Nancy Loomis does. But being jerked into the van and then just stabbed repeatedly as it's shaking and he's screaming and people are walking past and not hearing anything because of the music or because they just don't care. It's horrifying. It's horrifying. And not to mention, it's just gut wrenching because it's one of your favorite characters. Seeing the aftermath as well when Dewey and Gale open up the car and we actually see him dead, it broke my heart. Hearing Gale scream the way she did, and then Sydney's reaction afterwards. His death is kind of a turning point in Scream 2 because you kind of assumed that the legacy characters were going to be okay. You assumed that Gale, Dewey, and Sydney were going to be okay, and Randy, but then Randy wasn't okay, and I didn't expect Randy to die in that movie. I didn't want Randy to die in that movie. This also comes as a shock to Sydney, who I believe that, and you can't quote me on this because I didn't write the movie, but I believe this is one of the biggest reasons that Sydney winds up going into hiding is because she didn't think Randy was going to die, and then Randy did die, and it kind of made her realize that anybody could die at this point. So it's better to not get close to people. So I'm actually going to put Randy's death straight up into what's your favorite scary movie. It is the saddest death of the entire franchise. It's, in my opinion, it's absolutely heart-wrenching, absolutely just horrible. I will forever miss him. And I actually take that back because it's not the saddest death, but it is second for the saddest death of the franchise. We'll get to the saddest death later, and I think you already know what I'm talking about and what I'm thinking of, but we don't get there. Moving on to Ethan Landry. Ethan is the second of the three killers in Scream 6. He is the son of Wayne Bailey and the brother of Quinn, as well as Richie, who was the killer in Scream 5. Ethan took me by surprise. I really liked Ethan's character. I really liked Jack Champion's portrayal of Ethan. I thought that his mousiness towards the beginning of the film was extremely different from what later became his attitude after his reveal as Ghostface. I thought that his death was more elaborate, and I liked that, much in, the difference is his sister Quinn's. But when he gets stabbed in the mouth, I thought that was great. I thought that would have been the end of it. But seeing him then get hit with the TV that killed Stu, if you believe that, was a really great thing. The only thing that I will say brings it down a little bit is the fact that it was, again, a jump up and go, kind of the same thing that we talked about with Amber. You think that he's dead, and then he comes back for one last scare. That's something that I feel like is a little redundant at this point and done too much. So with that being said, I'm going to take Ethan and I'm going to place him in I'll Be Right Back. I really enjoyed the whole scene with Jenna Ortega falling onto him, stabbing him, and then, him getting the TV thrown upon him. Next, we're going to look at Tom Prince. Tom Prince is another Stab cast member from Scream 3. He is playing Dewey in the film, and he is not really mattering to the whole plot of the film. He's there to play Dewey. That's basically all Tom does. And he is in the house explosion at Jennifer's house. He goes back in And instead of just taking the paper and walking back outside where there are lights in the pool and he could easily just lean down and read it off the glow of the pool or anything else, he proceeds to go looking around in the house and winds up getting himself blown up. This was an inventive kill. I thought having the house blow up was pretty cool. It's one of the only times that we see, actually, I think it is the only time we see somebody blow up in the film series, but it just wasn't my favorite when he could have avoided this, quite frankly, at all times. So I'm going to put his death, and there are certain rules that one must abide by. Sir, you could have easily walked out of the room. You could have easily gone to another area with light sources or just taken it and left, because there was no need for all of that nonsense. From there, we are going to look at Maureen Evans. Maureen is the big kill of Scream 2, and she is played by Jada Pinkett Smith. She is somebody that doesn't like horror movies, and that's very clear in her not happy attitude towards having to go see a stab movie. And they do a lot of commentary on African Americans in horror, something that I think is very important to speak about. I also think that it's very important to speak about gender in horror film. If you have not read Carol Clover's Men, Women, and Chainsaws, I highly recommend it. It is something that I read back in 2022 that talks about gender in horror, and it is great. But regardless of that, back to race in horror films, they tend to speak a lot about that towards the beginning of the movie, and it's something that actually makes you more aware of it, and then you go and look it up more and everything. So having them die first in the horror film is commentary on the fact that African American characters tend to die first. It's not great. I do not like the fact that that is something that happens in horror quite a bit. But Maureen has a crazy death scene. She is stabbed in the theater when several people are around. And it's not until she actually gets up onto the screen and you see the blood and you see that it's coming out of her mouth and everything that people actually start to take it seriously. The idea that you can be stabbed in a room full of people and yell for help and make your way through them and they still aren't taking you seriously is absolutely horrendous. It's the same way you can't say grape in a crowded room, but you can scream fire and people are going to take you seriously. It's shocking, and it's extremely, extremely, extremely sad. So for that, I'm actually going to put her death in What's Your Favorite Scary Movie. It is one of those deaths that it haunts you. It really does haunt you. It is something that you have to think about when you go into crowded places like these. After this, we are going to be looking at Ross Haas, which first, no, your parents have their naming rights taken away. That is ridiculous. Ross Haas, no. He gets stabbed in the back with a single stab wound and then falls to his death, and he makes a really weird face when he does it. What? Like, you've got Perkins getting a decent death scene, a very good one actually, and then you have him get a single stab wound to the back. Like, now granted, had he been stabbed in the back and pierced his aorta, Degrassi fans know, you die. Well, forever mourn JT. However, it didn't look like that's what happened. Like, maybe he just had his spine cut and he could have lived. Granted, he's paralyzed, but he could have lived. So I'm just not really a big fan of this one. I am going to put this one in not in my movie. I need more from it, especially when you have Adam Brody playing this character, somebody who had, at this point, been in the OC. He was a household name. He did Jennifer's Body. And you're going to just give him a single stab wound in the back. I didn't like that very much. We are now going to be looking at Christine. Christine Hamilton is Cotton's girlfriend in Scream 3. She is somebody that is kind of chased and tormented by the killer, but we don't see that because we're so concerned with what is going on with Cotton in his car at that time. So that's a little sadder. And she also is one of those that gets the single stab in the back, something that is extremely repetitive in this series, something that I didn't notice very often. But it's the prelude to her death where she comes out and she's so terrified and she's crying and she's like, why would you do this to me? Why would you do this to me? I want that. I want to know what happened there. I don't really care to know about Cotton running through the streets of Hollywood. I want to know how Christine was tormented because she looks terrified, but we don't get that. Instead, we just get the single stab and then she's gone. So for that, I am actually going to put her death in. There are certain rules that one must abide by. It's great from my imagination, but from what I'm seeing, it's not the best. From there, we are going to look at Judy Hicks. Judy is Dewey's deputy in Scream 4, who then comes back for Scream 5 as the sheriff of Woodsboro. She is a character. She is somebody that it takes a moment to get to like, and I'm not sure I've actually reached that moment yet. I appreciate her character, and I love Marley Shelton, but Judy is quite annoying in my opinion. But her death is heart-wrenching. It really truly shows like a mother's love because she is racing back to save her son. She's racing back trying to get him out of harm's way, trying to fight for him. However, Judy's death irritates me to no end. She is a sheriff who is so concerned with everything that she forgets all of it. Now, granted, I get it. I get it. You're a mom whose child's in danger. However, she doesn't have her firearm on her. Nothing. Not even in the car. She's in her sheriff's vehicle. She wouldn't think to carry that with her. And she's not skilled enough in hand-to-hand combat. Like, and this is where I get that. Like, yes, she was jump scared and she got stabbed and everything. But if you're skilled in hand-to-hand combat, you get jump scared and then you punch. Gail's done it. Sydney's done it. It does exist, but Judy just kind of takes it. And for somebody who is so family oriented, if you will, she doesn't really put up much of a fight. And so for that, I'm actually going to put her death, and my mom and dad are going to be so mad at me. I think a lot of people like her death. I'm just not the biggest fan of it. I feel like she actually should have done more, should have been more. Next, we are going to be looking at Annika's death. Annika is Mindy's girlfriend in Scream 6. And I know that I didn't mention this in my reaction, but Annika's actually my favorite death in Scream 6. It's so sad. She's bleeding out and Mindy's trying to save her. Mindy's telling her to go and everything, but she knows that even if she were to get across that ladder, she may not survive with how much blood has now come out of her. When Ghostface goes after Mindy, she grabs him. She fights back. She tries her best. And her death is just, I mean, he shakes the ladder and she falls. I mean, I don't know if I could be able to hold on to it, but something that really irritates me is Sam had a hold of her. Sam reached out and grabbed her hand. She could have easily grabbed the other one and Danny could have pulled them both back in, or Mindy could have grabbed the other and Danny could have pulled them in, or anything. But we just grabbed her hand and then let her fall. So, in a way, I feel like her death could have been avoided. Then again, I also think that it was something that probably would not have been avoided. But Annika does have a great death in that way, and I think, it's hard because I could put her in What's Your Favorite Scary Movie, and I could also put her in I'll Be Right Back. But I think I'm going to put her in What's Your Favorite Scary Movie. That death stuck with me. Especially seeing after her head hit the trash can. That was terrifying. And then seeing Jasmine Savoy Brown did an amazing job in that scene with just her agony after seeing her girlfriend die. That was very sad. We are now going to be looking at Nancy Loomis. That is Billy's mother, and she is one of the two killers in Scream 2. She winds up getting shot by Cotton in the neck and then shot by Sydney in the head. And, I mean, it's fine. It's fine. And, we did the whole, always got to shoot him in the head thing. But she was shot in the neck by Cotton Weary. And for some reason, that just rubs me the wrong way. I don't know. I can't really explain that one. I feel like her chase scene and everything and her arguing with Sydney and fighting with Sydney was going to lead up to something so much more. But it literally ended with her getting killed by Cotton and Mickey's the one that jumps up. And so it just didn't line up for me. So I'm actually going to put Nancy Loomis in Not in My Movie. We are now going to look at Jason Garvey. Jason Garvey is one of the two killers in Scream 6 that killed their professor, and we've already gone over Greg as well as Laura in this ranking already. Jason's disemboweled, I believe, and he makes that comment of, what about the movie? So his death I liked in the opening. I thought that it was a pretty good opening. I liked the actor playing him. I didn't like that he pulled his mask off. I thought that was pretty stupid, but that has nothing to do with his death. Um, but his death scene is basically playing hotter or colder, something we've all played as children, in his apartment to find his buddy Greg's body. And Jason gets stabbed several times and then just kind of lays on his floor. It's a great opening sequence. I think it's really good. And I like the fact that Ghostface jumps out at him. So I'm going to put this one in. My mom and dad are going to be so mad at me. It's fine. I know that there's some in here that I'm still not a big fan of that I've put in this category. However, his death is fine. It's just fine. It's very middle of the road, so it's in the middle of the ranking. We are now going to look at Robbie Mercer. Robbie is the co-founder, vice president of the Cinema Club at Woodsboro High in 2011, or Scream 4. And he is at Kirby's house and live streaming to his audience when he gets murdered by Ghostface. He is the one that brings it up, the fact that in horror movies you kind of have to be gay in order to survive, and uses the whole "I'm gay" scenario when he is being stabbed, which I'm not the biggest fan of, but what I am a huge fan of is the fact that he still makes it up that porch to tell the girls to run as he is bleeding out. I really liked Robbie's death, but same thing with Jason. It's very middle of the road. I think the one thing that brings it up, because I am going to be putting in I'll be right back, is the fact that he does use that line to call back to that. And Ghostface's head tilt is great. When he goes, I'm gay, if it helps. And Ghostface just goes, huh? Because Charlie's under that mask, and he's like, wait a minute, you are? And then him telling the girls to run. I think that's what bumps it up just a little bit from my mom and dad are going to be so mad at me to I'll be right back. Next, we are going to be looking at Mickey Altieri, who is the other Ghostface killer in Scream 2. And his death is that he gets shot multiple times by Gail and Sydney, and that is after Nancy has shot him once. His jump up fake scare is the scariest one in the series. And it's the one that works the best. However, I'm just not the biggest fan of them as killers. I think that his motive is pretty very 90s, but I don't buy him and Nancy working together. I do think that Mickey could have been a killer by himself, but I don't think that him and Nancy work well together, but that's neither here nor there. His death scene of him getting shot and then getting shot multiple times again, it's very just meh. I'm not the biggest fan, but I do think it's a little bit better than Nancy's, so I'm going to put it in there are certain rules that one must abide by. Now, you may have noticed that I have added another tile. That is because I am a dummy and I completely forgot Derek. Derek! I love Derek's character. I love seeing the way that he is with Sydney, and I love seeing that, she could have had better. I'm not sure how she's going to be with Mark in this next one, and it's not even the Mark we know, but nonetheless, I loved Derek, and Derek's death is so heartbreaking. I'm going to go ahead and just tell you I'm putting it in and I'll be right back. Derek is begging Sydney to trust him. Begging him. And all Mickey had to do was plant that tiny little seed of doubt. Tiniest little seed. And Sydney doesn't believe him. And it's heartbreaking to see his face. And then when he does get shot, and he's defenseless because of these freaking fraternity brothers. And then when he is shot, and his whole line of, I would have never hurt you. But can we just turn back time a little bit? Just please? Please? So that is when I put him, I'll be right back. I think that Sydney and Derek would have been just an amazing couple had he survived. We're not going to be looking at Wes Hicks. Wes is Judy's son, and he is played by Dylan Minnette, who is really known for 13 Reasons Why at this point. He gets his neck stabbed, and it kind of goes through his neck, and then he dies. I love this death. I absolutely love this death. I'm putting it right up into what's your favorite scary movie. The only thing I do not like about this death is the fact that the scene prior to this, when you're following Wes through the house, is so freaking long. However, his actual death makes up for it. The fact that he starts to fight and then gets overpowered immediately, and Ghostface slowly pushes the knife in, and you see his face, his eyes go wide with, surprise that he's dying, and then Ghostface gets so close to him and watches the life drain from his eyes. It is such a great death scene, absolutely great, and played by, both of the actors very well. Along greatness, we also have Wayne Bailey. And by the say along with greatness is like, now we have experienced great, now we're going to talk about a not so great one. Wayne is, well, not so great character. Wayne is stabbed a ton of times. But something that really gets me is that he's only stabbed in like his neck and arms area, and it wasn't until I watched the movie this time that I realized it's probably because she has a bulletproof vest. But Sidney stabbed through the bulletproof vest in Scream 3, so Sam could have easily done that as well. What saves this a little bit is the stab through the eye, which I thought was pretty well done, but this was very middle of the road for me. It's just another Ghostface killing. I'm going to put it in. My mom and dad are going to be so mad at me. Along with that, we have Brooks. He is the last character from Scream 6 that we have to rank, and he is Gail's new boyfriend. I bet while I was doing that, y'all were trying to figure out who Brooks was. He's supposed to be Gail's boyfriend, and he's got screen time for all of 2 minutes. And he gets his throat slit and thrown through a bookshelf. And Gail does not seem to care. Gail is like, okay, moving on. It's because he's not Dewey. It did not work, and I do not understand why they even would give Gail a boyfriend at this point. Dewey was the love of Gail's life. Let her be the powerhouse career woman who's a widow. Just let her do it. Don't put her with random people who are just going to be cannon fodder. It's ridiculous. His death made no sense. It had no meaning. I didn't bat an eye when he died. Somebody I did bat an eye for, though, was Kenny. Kenny, the cameraman from Scream 1. I'm going to put his death, and I'll be right back. He gets his throat slit in the camera van, but with his dying breath tells Sidney how to get out of the van without running into Ghostface. And anytime somebody is playing savior role as they are dying themselves, it automatically gives them a leg up, because it's hard to think about anybody else when you are losing your own life and your life is flashing before your eyes. And so for somebody who is berated the majority of the movie and has to spend all of his time, taping all of this stuff for Gail and, being that cameraman, it's nice to see the humanity in him. And it made Kenny one of my favorite characters of the first film. Somebody who's not so much my favorite character, though, we are going to be looking at Cotton Weary. I love Liv Schreiber, and I think Cotton is gorgeous. However, he's annoying, especially in Scream 2. But Cotton's death scene in Scream 3, I was surprised by. I did not think that Cotton was going to be the opening kill. I mean, it's always some type of female. And we do have Christine, but Cotton is the main one. And the fact that he is from the legacy characters is like losing Randy again, except for not as bad. But what gets me is that why would Ghostface think that Cotton would know where Sidney is, considering Sidney hates him? She has made it very clear she hates him. And you think that he's going to know where she's at? Come on now. I'm going to actually put Cotton's death in... My mom and dad are going to be so mad at me. People ride or die for Cotton's death. They think that he never should have died. They think that his death scene is extremely sad. Some think that it is the best out there. I just don't care for it. I think that it's very shocking that Cotton is the opening kill, which I just mentioned. However, I just don't think they did it as good as they've done other ones. And it doesn't make sense. It does not make sense to me. And if you make it not make sense, then you lose my suspension of disbelief. It doesn't work. From there, we are going to look at Roman Bridger. Roman Bridger is the killer of Scream 3, the director of Stab 3, and is the only Ghostface to work alone. His motive is great. I love his motive. Absolutely love his motive. His death, though, of just being shot multiple times and then shot in the head, is... However, I like the fact that he's like running in place when it happens. I do like that. But I am going to put it in. There are certain rules that one must abide by. I do like the fight between him and Sidney, but I feel like he could have taken on more damage. A lot of the ghost faces do take on a ton of damage. However, he does not. It's almost like a Mortal Kombat rating. Like, he just kept... that bar would just move back up, and you're like, what the heck, dude? So I just think his death are just... There's certain things that you think they're going to happen with a Ghostface kill when Ghostface is killed, and Roman did not give that as much as others did. Speaking of a Ghostface who gave it all and still failed, Jill Roberts. Now, we are not going to be talking about her escapades at the house where she threw herself into stuff and all that, because it has nothing to do with her actual death. Jill goes to kill Sidney again, and because she thought that Sidney was dead, but Sidney was alive. And she gets electrocuted with defibrillator pads in the head and then gets shot in the heart. The defibrillator pads was crazy. I thought that was inventive. I thought that it was great. I thought that Gail doing the, can I have one last line clear was fun. But I just was done with Jill. I was just done with Jill. But I think the defibrillator pads really gave it something. I am going to put it in the middle of the road just because... the defibrillator pads was all of 2 seconds, and that was it. I do think that she was annoying, and I do think that she talked a ton during this. There wasn't a ton of action. It was just her standing around. Now we are going to be looking at Jennifer Jolie, who is a fan favorite from Scream 3. She is playing Gale Weathers in the film adaptation in Stab 3. And her death is... She is behind some one-way mirrors, and Dewey and Gale are on the other side, and she's screaming for them, and she's screaming at Ghostface not to kill her, and he can't kill her and such, and then Dewey starts shooting through the glass, and then when the last one falls, it's Jennifer. It's left up to interpretation if Jennifer was stabbed to death, or if... well, I mean, she was stabbed multiple times, but if... the stabs led to her death, or if Dewey accidentally shot her as well, ending it, which I think is heartbreaking either way. One way is, like, literally she was right on the other side of that glass, and we could have helped her, but we didn't, and the other being, oh crap, did I just kill my friend? So that, I think, is something, and we never get an answer to that, unless I've missed it somewhere, so that one, I think, makes it, a little bit better. I'm actually going to put it in I'll Be Right Back. I like to think that she died via the ghost face, because I don't want to put that on Dewey. Now, Stu, I put him on here, and if he winds up not being dead in Scream 7, I keep saying Stab, then you guys can remind me, and I'll take him off of it when we do the ranking when Scream 7 comes out. However, I'm not a huge fan of his death. I don't know. I'm not a doctor, but I'm not completely sure how the TV could have killed him. I understand it has something to do with the electrical current into your head, which makes a ton of sense. But for me, it's just not... it's not my favorite. It's very kind of like Mickey's. It's very anticlimactic. He gets it thrown on his head, and then that's it. But I love Stu. I do think that the question of if he is still alive or not, the death makes it a lot better. But I'm going to put it in, my mom and dad are going to be so mad at me, his line. People love Stu's death. They absolutely love it. They think that it's one of the greatest. They think that he could have survived it and everything. There's so much speculation around it that even I have speculation. Which is why I put it in, my mom and dad are going to be so mad at me. Now, one that I don't even have to question or anything, we're going to just go ahead and put Casey Becker right on up here into what's your favorite scary movie. That opening scene, haunts you. Her running, her being gutted, her being hung from a tree, her parents finding her, every single piece of it is just chef's kiss. Like, absolutely heart wrenching for her parents, but great for the audience. I love that thing. And that thing, like, when that opening scene ends, you feel like you got to take a breath. You got to go have a cigarette or something because, whew, that is crazy. Um, from there, we are going to be looking at Richie Kirsch. Richie is Scream 5's Ghostface. He is also the son of Wayne Bailey and the brother of both Ethan and Quinn. His death involves Sam kind of giving in to her father's persona, her father's fate, and offing him in a variety of ways, including stabbing, shooting, and throat slitting. I like it. I'm going to put it in I'll Be Right Back. Richie's death, I mean, he was stabbed in an overkill manner, but his whimpering and don't ruin my movie. And, like, sir, you just killed everybody I know, and you want me to have mercy on you? No. I don't like that. But I love the fact that he asks about his ending, and that's when he gets his throat slit. And I think that that was very cinematic in that way. I really enjoyed that. And I liked Richie. I was very sad when he came out to be the killer. We are now going to be looking at Charlie Walker. Charlie is the ghost face of Scream 4 along with Jill, and she kills him. She double crosses him and stabs him in the heart when he originally thought that she was going to stab him in the shoulder because they were going to make themselves out to be like the sole survivors, but she wanted to be the only one. So she stabbed him in the heart. I think the deception is what makes it so great, and his realization that the girl that he's been hooking up with, the girl that he's been seeing, is crazy. Which we all knew that, but he apparently didn't. I'm going to put his death in I'll Be Right Back. It's that deception factor. It's her going to stab him and him getting ready and then finding out that she stabbed him in the heart. That moment right there really secured that spot. We are now going to be looking at Billy Loomis, the original Ghostface killer, who gets stabbed with a umbrella and then shot twice. Once in the chest and once in the head. Billy is a great Ghostface, and Skeet Ulrich did such an amazing job with this role. And his death, I think it sets a bar. I'm going to put it in I'll Be Right Back. Billy's death as Ghostface sets a bar for how Ghostface deaths should go. So we expect that, I wouldn't say overkill, but we expect that level of tenacity and that level of anger and aggression that we see him give to everybody else in the film when he is ending them. So I like that death scene. I think that it's really cool also that he's the one that comes back, because you look at him and you're like, oh no, he's dead. But obviously Stu is under a TV. So I really like that one. And last, but certainly not least, Deputy Dwight Riley. I want to put it in Not My Movie because this does not belong in my movie. However, his death is going to go straight up into what's your favorite scary movie. Dewey is the heart of that franchise. Dewey is everything that everybody loves out of that franchise. However, it was time for one of them to go, and unfortunately it had to be Dewey. Why, I will never understand. If you know, please let me know in the comment section. But I love Dewey. I love David Arquette. And his death is just so sad. He saves somebody. That's what Dewey does. He saves people. And he goes back to end it because he thinks that he can. He thinks that it would help. And he winds up getting completely obliterated. 2 knives, one in the front, one in the back, and ripping up. And as all of his blood is just falling to the floor, his phone starts ringing. And he looks down and sees Gail's name. And it's that slight smile, that slightest of a smile that appears on his lips when he realizes that she still cared and called for him. Knowing that they never got their last phone call is absolutely devastating to me. I love Dewey. I will always love Dewey. And I hate the fact that he had to die. Okay, Cinephiles, so that was another tier ranking wrapped up. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope that we had some of the same agreements on a lot of these. If you would replace any of these tiles at all. Please let me know which one and why, where you would put it and why, down in the comment section below. I would love to hear your thoughts. I really do enjoy making these videos, but I know that it's my opinion and others might not share those opinions, and that is perfectly, absolutely fine. If you haven't already, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. I have so much more content coming your way. And give this video a like if you're enjoying these rankings. I will consider continuing to do them. Maybe give me a couple of suggestions about what you think I should rank, whether it's tier rankings or ranking, best to worst or worst to best. I would love to do some more of these. I will start doing other series kind of like this in January in 2026. But I'm really excited for that. I have so much things planned out, so many things. But yeah, until next time, Cinephiles, bye.